Beruchim Abayim, and welcome to Torah Talks Chazaq's program with special guests. We have with us Rabbi Hertzel Hillel Yitzhak. Baruch haba, Rabbi. How are you?
Hashem. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us all the way from Chicago. What a zchut, what an honor. And we're going to be speaking about conversions to Judaism. But before we get to the topic, the Rabbi can give us a little bit of a background about yourself and the great work you're involved with.
Okay, background. So I was born in Israel. My family and I immigrated to America in around 1985. We lived in New York for some time. I went to different yeshivot in New York. I came to Chicago over 20 years ago to get my doctorate in clinical psychology. At the same time, I was pursuing my smicha. And currently, for the last 14 years, I'm serving as rabbi of a congregation in Evanston, Illinois. It's near Chicago, called the Sephardic Congregation.
Nice, interesting, amazing. The rabbi is also involved with the CRC, the Chicago Rabbinical Council.
Yes. I serve as a dayan in the Conversion Commission, overseeing the conversion process, and as well helping those in the process of conversion.
Right, so that's what we're going to be speaking about, B'ezrat Hashem. So we all know that we don't promote converting to Judaism. We don't seek out and we don't recruit. So how does it work when one comes to the rabbi as your position as a dayan in the CRC? How does it work? What inspires one to come to the Bet Din?
Well, everyone has a different story. We can't put all of them in the same category. When a person seeks the truth, seeks the emet, and they don't find it where they currently are, and they taste a little bit of Judaism, they want to taste more, they want more. When a person seeks the truth and finds the truth, it's they're either blind or ignorant, or they want to pursue it completely. I tell people in the process, or at least before the process begins, look, you can be a very good non-Jew. You don't need to convert to Judaism. And you'll still have your... What's that?
7 mitzvot. It's only 7 mitzvot as opposed to 6.
Correct. You can have a share in the world to come as long as you abide by the 7 mitzvot of Bnei Noach. And very rarely, seldom do I hear people say, "Oh, okay, have a good day." We tell them, "Look what's happening in the world with anti-Semitism. Why would you want to put yourself in that?" And people really are, especially now, or when we see Yemot HaMashiach, and people seek the truth, they really want to convert, and even though it's difficult, even though they realize that there's so many more obligations that they have to take up on themselves, they're ready to go on full force ahead.
Amazing. I was actually doing a Torah talk with another rabbi who was telling me that the amount of conversion that's gone on is historic. The amount that are people reaching out to convert to Judaism, very, very interesting. So the question of the rabbi is, throughout the Torah, it mentions about the ger, about the convert. What are some of the do's and don'ts when we encounter them?
So, as Jewish people, we're very curious. We're very curious people. And when we meet new people, we like to ask them questions. Oh, who's your father? Who's your mother? What school did you go to? Converts don't often want to stand out. Someone once asked me, when we speak about Onkelos Sager, Onkelos was a great rabbi who had written a translation of the Torah in Aramaic. He asked me, this is after his conversion, he asked me, why is it called Onkelos Sager? Why is he described or identified as a ger? I said, you're reading it incorrectly. It's not Onkelos Sager, it's Onkelos Sager. There's great pride in that. There's great pride that having come from where he came from and dropping everything, he came from royalty, and pursuing what he wanted to pursue. But nonetheless, converts do want to sort of fit into the community. They don't want to stand out. So to ask them probing questions, once you do find out they're converts, asking something like, so what does pork taste like? Or what is this, what have you done? And there's a concept of onat, which means just like you're not allowed to cause suffering by saying things to a Jewish person, all the more so to a person who converted to Judaism. And one of the examples that the Gemara gives is a convert comes to learn Torah, and you say to him, "You're learning Torah? Just a few weeks ago, you were not Jewish, and you're eating, pig. What are you coming to learn Torah for?" So we have to be very, very careful, and when we meet converts, and not to be too nosy about, especially not when you first met them. Everybody has a story. Everybody has an amazing story to tell. If they want to share that with you, give them an opportunity. But if they don't probe, because they are, as any other person might be, very private, and they may not necessarily want to reveal the whole story. I once had a woman whose mother passed away. She's a convert, and somebody whose mother passed away, you would assume there's a shiva and everything else. But as converts, they don't mourn. They don't sit shiva. They could mourn. There's no halachic mourning. And suddenly everybody knew that she was a convert. Halachically, she could have very well, done certain things in sitting shiva, even for her mother, just for her not to stand out. But that's a separate point, just again to illustrate that they do want to fit in. They do want to. They don't want to stand out.
100%. What is the process in conversion to Judaism? How does it work? They just walk into the Beit Din and call it a day?
So the process is pretty rigorous process. It's not that simple. We have a curriculum for them. First, when we assess them, we hear the story, why they want to convert. We do mention to them things that I mentioned to you before, that, look, you could be a good non-Jew and you don't have to go through this whole process. And that anti-Semitism that goes on in the world and things of this nature, and that they continue on wanting to convert. We find them as sponsoring rabbi. I also serve as a sponsoring rabbi, but I don't sponsor everybody who wants to convert in Chicago. The CRC is a source of Beit Din that people from around the country and around the world actually come to for conversion, because we're very, very rigorous in our expectations. We have a very rigorous program where they're required to read X number of books with their sponsoring rabbi to really know the material. Much of the material revolves around halacha, about Jewish laws. And it's amazing that when they complete the process, they know a lot more laws than your average Jewish person. It's funny that one person once told me that Jewish people have been asking him different questions because it's so fresh in their minds, because they've just studied all of this. So they usually, after going through a particular set of books and curriculum, they meet with a Beit Din, with a sponsoring rabbi, and we ask them different questions and ensuring their sincerity. And then there's a second curriculum. Again, after they master the second curriculum, they meet again with the CRC. There's a third curriculum, so there's 3 curriculums altogether, at which point, if the CRC feels that they're ready to convert, that will take place not long thereafter. Sometimes it requires longer than that. So the average time is approximately 1 year from the point where they start to the point where they complete the process.
Rabbi, could you tell us a little bit more about the Sfarim as well that the Rabbi published?
Sure. So some time ago, I wanted to write a set of Sfarim, especially for Sfaradim who did not understand Hebrew really well. So I started out in the laws of Tzitzit, and this is a book.
Yes, I got a copy from the Rabbi many years ago.
So it's really, really comprehensive. It has pictures. It has illustrations. It's an encyclopedic review on all the laws, major laws of Tzitzit. Specifically for Sfaradim, Ashkenazic rulings are mentioned there as well. I also have a book called The Daily Rituals. Both of them are available on Amazon. This one deals as well with from the time you wake up, all the different rituals for both. This one is both for Sfaradim and Ashkenazim. And I also have a sefer that I published a few years ago in Hebrew on different questions and answers called Tzel Yarim. And different shuvot of Gedolei Israel. Baruch Hashem, I'm working on a second volume of this responsa.
Amazing, Rabbi. Very inspiring. Many more businesses.
Amen. Thank you.
With what I understand, I've seen in communities that there are cases, I'm sure the Rabbi has this as well, of not just an individual, but families. How does it work with regards to the children, if they're younger than bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah? If you could shed some light on that.
So if they're not bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah, we still convert them, but they are under the auspices of betin. In other words, they're not full converts yet. When the boy turns 13, he has a choice. And when the girl turns 12, she has a choice whether or not to continue their Judaism. In other words, if we converted somebody, a boy, at 6 years of age, for example, when they're 13, we ask them, he says, look, you converted when you're 6. Now you have a choice to either drop everything, at which point everything will be retroactive and there's no neshama, there's no soul for that Jewish soul for that boy. If they say, no, I love Judaism, I want to continue being a Jewish person and performing the mitzvot, then at that point they continue and there's no going back at that particular point. Once a person converts to Judaism, there's no going back. That's the only time that there is a going back, is when they were converted as a minor, and now they're halachically an adult, where they have that choice.
Wow, interesting. How does it work with regards to minhagim and customs?
Great question.
For example, the nusach of praying.
So it really follows there's the sponsoring rabbi. If the sponsoring rabbi is Sephardic, usually the people go according to sponsoring rabbi. If he's Ashkenazic, Chabad, whatever it is, they usually follow him.
Very, very, very interesting. Wow. And the cases that the rabbi's been dealing with for all these years, if there would be one or case that sticks out to be interesting for their inspiration to come into Judaism, or their commitments to Judaism, or how does anything come to the rabbi's mind with regards to a family or an individual?
I'll tell you, there were times, converts that I've met, that since a young age, they felt that they were Jewish. They couldn't explain it. They were born in a non-Jewish family. They lived their whole lives as non-Jews, but they felt at a young age that they are Jewish. Look, Kabbalistically, a person is a non-Jew when it comes to Gilgulim, reincarnations. A non-Jew can never come back as a Jew. But a Jew, for whatever reason, can come back as a non-Jew and hopefully shed the klipot, these exteriors that they need to go through and then convert to Judaism. So that's the only explanation that I have with regards to these individuals who felt that they couldn't explain it as a child. They were just Jewish their whole lives. They just couldn't explain it.
Unbelievable. I know that there's been issues in different communities. I've heard about this, that there are certain families that unfortunately they're going to intermarry, and then they try to do a whole thing with regards to conversion. And we all know that there's love, attached to something, an individual or something. It's an issue. How does the Beit Din deal with it? What's the right process? What do we do in such scenarios?
That's an excellent question. So I'll give you an example. If there's a man, for example, who Chas v'Shalom finds a non-Jewish woman and says, I want to marry her, and she's interested in converting to Judaism, we wouldn't jump at the gun quickly to convert her, because we want to make sure that she's not converting only for that reason. Anybody who converts for the wrong reasons, it's just, when a person converts to Judaism, they receive a neshama. The Zohar Kadosh says something really, really beautiful, that the neshama that they receive is from a special place. in that Hashem calls the neshama, gives it a kiss, and says, "Go down to this particular person who's converting to Judaism right now." This is what's called ger tzedek, a person who's really sincere in conversion. And then there's something called ger, not ger tzedek, ger, where the neshama comes from the sitra achra. It comes from a negative place, where throughout their lives, even post-conversion, they're going to have difficulties with observing mitzvot. They're going to have difficulties with Judaism in general. So we don't want to get to a situation where we're converting somebody who's going to have a sitra achra neshama. We want somebody who's going to be a ger tzedek. As such, we are very careful to make sure that this person is converting for the right reasons, to the point where we assess if this man was not in the picture, would that person still continue to convert? Maybe when they first come in, they're not as sincere, but when they see the beauty of Judaism, when they see how amazing Torah is, the mitzvot, I'll share with you a story. I'll try not to give too many details because obviously we want to keep the anonymity of the people. Sure. There was a person that we met who came from a frum family. He met a non-Jewish woman, and he slowly started to become less frum. His family did not yet meet her. They lived in a different country, as a matter of fact, at that particular point. He told her, "Let's go back to my house. For Pesach, you'll meet my family." They did. The family met her. They weren't so thrilled. Obviously, their son is married to a non-Jewish woman. She was so inspired with Pesach. When they went back to their country, she told them, "Look, I'm fascinating with Judaism. I'm going head on. If you're either going to be on my level or I'm going to divorce you. I'm going to convert." Yeah. So he actually became more frum as a result of her. Now that's rare. We don't say, "Hey, find a non-Jewish woman because maybe you'll be frum." And chas v'shalom, that's not what we're saying. But there could be so many different cases and so many different scenarios. Every case is so different. Every case is so fascinating, really, of how a person begins to convert. But going back to your question, we're very, very careful. We try to be very, very careful to make sure that we have before us a ger tzedek and not just a ger.
Right, 100%. We were discussing the process before. What we all know is that a Gentile shouldn't be keeping Shabbat. So how does it work with regards to the process where they're studying and they have their sponsoring rabbi, which is teaching them and everything, and they start wearing tzitzit, and I see this, and they come to the shirim and the lectures and the classes and the bet knesset and the shul. How does it work with regards to Shabbat Kodesh before they get converted 100%?
So you mentioned three different things at once, making very good points. So I do tell my converts not to put on tefillin. They do need to be recognized as a person who's going through the conversion process. If they go to a shul where I'm not there, people can count them in the minyan or give them an aliyah and things of that nature. Obviously, they know better not to do that, at least not to accept an aliyah. But sometimes people may not necessarily notice, and they could be the 10th person, and obviously the people should not be praying and wait for a 10th person to arrive because this person doesn't count them in a minyan. With regards to Shabbat, we do tell them to violate Shabbat. Shabbat is a gift to the Jewish nation and only to the Jewish nation, and non-Jew is not allowed to observe Shabbat. So we do. For some of them, it's very difficult because they've come to a point where they're so observant that to break Shabbat is so difficult for them. But they need to break Shabbat, and they cannot wait until to the point where they're able to observe Shabbat. But we do tell them to violate Shabbat.
Wow, very, very interesting, Rabbi. Very interesting gems that you're telling all of us on this topic. We have a minhag at Torah Talks, which is a final message, a takeaway that Rabbi could give all of us. We appreciate your time very, very much, Rabbi Hertzel Hillel Yitzhak from Chicago.
My pleasure.
And just a shout out to your wife's cousin, Adam Siona, for putting this together. And the Rabbi has family over here where I am from Queens. And regards to all of them.
Thank you. A final message is if you do come across a person who is either in the process of conversion or has converted, whatever whatever you have in your mind about conversions and converts, don't jump to conclusions. There's a special mitzvah that we have to love the convert. Hashem loves the convert. These are people who have sacrificed so much. Some of them, their families have disowned them. They said, if you go to Judaism, well, you can't pick something else. If you're going to go with Judaism, we're going to disown you. And they decided to just sacrifice and go with it because of their love for Kadosh Baruch Hu, their love for the Jewish people. So that's my message. Learn about it, and if you do encounter somebody who has converted to Judaism, love them for who they are, and love them for their journey. And there's a lot to learn. There's a lot to learn about them and about us and the relationship between us and them.
Amazing, Rabbi Hertzel Hillel Yitzhak from Chicago. It was a pleasure and an honor to have you on the program. Conversions to Judaism. We want to thank all of our platforms for hosting Chazaq Torah Talks podcast. Special shout out to Torah Anytime for hosting it as well. Daily giving, $1 a day, really goes a very far way. We encourage everyone to check it out. And of course, right now at Chazaq, it's our busy season. Even though it's the summer, many people go away. We're working Yomam V'Layla, day and night, primarily because it's the new school year is coming soon. And we're on a mission. No Jewish child should be left behind. Every single Jewish child deserves Jewish education. And whoever's interested in Jewish education, whether it's through our after-school program, their Sunday school programs, their teens division programs, and especially our yeshiva placement division, where we transfer and help and guide the parents throughout the process, hold their hands from public schools to yeshiva. Baruch Hashem, about 1,500 kids being so far the last few years alone. Baruch Hashem, thank God. Reach out to Chazaq. We're ready, willing, able to help. Dedications and future guest speakers suggestions are always encouraged. Please email us at info@chazaq.org. Once again, thank you very much, Rabbi Hertzel Yitzhak, Rabbi Hertzel Hillel Yitzhak, and I really appreciate the Rabbi's time, and thank you for all that you do for Klal Yisrael, the Beit Knesset, and we didn't even mention the Sfarim that I know about that the Rabbi wrote, and the work you do with the community in Chicago and the Bet team. Yeshar Koach, Yagdib Torah V'Yedir, and Bezat Shem, we should be Sochem. We should merit to see the Geulah Shlema, the complete redemption. Shagam B'Merav Leinu, Spilling the days, we should be together in Yerushalayim. B'Merav Leinu, Amen.
Amen.